Hello everyone, and welcome back to Old World. We are live once more with another tournament match. This time part 2 of MongrelEyes versus WatchtheTurd. Funny name there. This is part 2. We have Rome versus Persia. That feels like a classic matchup to me. I don't know why. I think Rome and Persia are both popular picks in multiplayer. And there's already been some conflict. The Romans expanded quite early and exerted their presence across the map here. In a somewhat dominant way, I would say. And managed to settle this site, and then I think these two sites were settled early, right? And then he began expanding. Then Turd began expanding northward along the Thracians and tribal and barbarian regions. All Thracians on this side of the map. But if we hop on over to the Persian side of the map, Persia has fully expanded his side of the map, dealing with a little bit of rebels down here in the State Sea, upset family. But there was a conflict pretty early on. And the Persians have taken a city. It'll be interesting to see if the Persians decide to go north and try to push out the Romans entirely. I think they would pretty easily be able to do that. Rome would have a lot of territory to cross in order to kind of defend that city. So I would be in favor of Rome just cutting losses here, abandoning this, and taking whatever orders they have and trying to flesh out their back country. I think that would be a yet better use of the Roman time, or even if they don't choose not to expand to keep pace with Persia, spending whatever orders they have developing their economies and stuff. You don't really want to get... It's only turned 50, but I think it's kind of tricky to get into a war, a prolonged war with Persia, because they have such a great order economy. I'll take a look at the stats in a moment, but they have such a great order economy. Ooh, actually, I'll be right back. I apologize. 1 second. Forgive me for the hiccup there. Yeah, I just feel like you don't want to get in a prolonged war with Persia if you can avoid it, unless you're ready to really fight and do some damage, because the Persian order economy is usually so great that they can kind of drain your ability to do anything else. So right now we have here on turn 50. Discord, hello. If you are live with us, appreciate you being here. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, I think that's amazing. If you've been following along this journey, there's lots and lots of action. Don't burn yourself out. Don't burn yourself out on all of the old world content. One of the nice things about the pace here and the fact that we're capturing so much action is that you can take as much time as you want to follow along. You know, follow along at your own pace. And as the tournament advances and goes on, even if you fall behind on the matches, it's still always fun to go back and check out the way things happened, went down, or catch the commentary if you've been enjoying the commentary. So yeah, let's look at some other stats of where we're at in the game right now. Both players are taking their first turn pause, which we do allow. It's more of an agreement rather than strictly in the rules. Yeah, science is really, really good for both players. Well, I mean, with respect to each other. So like I said, there's been some conflict already, so science arguably is a little low, but ultimately that doesn't really matter as long as you're keeping pace with your opponent, and both players are. We have 39 science in Rome, which is good since the MongrelEyes has a bit of advantage in other areas. And Persia has 35 science and only a 50 science tech lead. invested in the tech tree. So they're neck and neck. They're right where they need to be. Let's take a look at workers as well. That's another important metric. 7 workers to Persia, 6 to Rome. So yeah, Rome really doesn't want to get into a prolonged conflict at this moment. Rome has lost 9 units. So there was a battle over Ivanum. The Persians have taken it. And as I said, with a tactician on the throne, I fully suspect they'll be able to take Ariminum. And if I were the Romans, I really wouldn't contest this. I would see if I could get this warrior to escape. I'd probably delete the slinger out of the queue and just have this run council until it falls. I wouldn't bother contesting because you really don't want to spend your orders. You don't want to waste your orders here. I think fortifying is probably a bit ill-advised as well. Just kind of back up. But this, I think, is a mistake that I see a lot with newer or less experienced players. I understand the desire to fortify, and it's not even that fortifying bad. For me, it's the positioning, right? As the Romans, we're basically saying we're happy to fight a battle on our front line, along our border. But realistically, where you should be positioning most of the time, in my opinion, is behind your city, or near your city, right? Force your enemy, and it goes also for urban spread, because your opponent can get bonus on these urban tiles, defensive bonus on these urban tiles. So one thing I like to try to do, for example, sometimes I'll put my barracks complex and all that behind the city. And the reason for this is if I can get my opponent to come into my territory, again, whether they're urban or not, I care less about that. That's just a side consideration. But if I can get them to come into my territory and fight within my borders, that helps me with vision. Because if they're trying to reinforce from the back line, I have a better sense of what units are coming. They can't heal themselves even with a hero general. I get combat buffs for my units in the territory, especially if they belong to a family. So there's all sorts of reasons why you want to have your opponent come inside your territory if you're cut a lot of the scrub. Maybe keep the forest for defense, but I'd cut a lot of the scrub so it forced my opponent out into flatland, open territory, so that I can pelt them with rocks and stuff. In fact, let's take a look at technology for... Who am I? I'm Rome right now. We're just getting phalanx, which is great. That's going to come in handy for the Persian unique unit. If we could get chariots, that would be lovely as well, because we could cut a lot of the scrub, and this would be vast open terrain with which our chariots would really shine. And Roman chariots are actually pretty great because they have that extra fatigue, because they're Roman. So they're highly mobile, which is nice. We are actually on Persia's turn. I'm going to take a pop on over there and see what's going on in that neck of the woods. In fact, we have 3 turns away from steel. The Persians naturally are clocking the spear counter, and they are getting prepped for it, which is, good overall strategic thinking there. Good meta thinking for wonders on this game. We already have the Great Stupa for Persia, which is pretty gross because that's more orders, and it's also 2 civics in every city. That's a pretty nice grab for them. Lots of legendary wonders on the board as well. Yeah, so I think last session was a nice setup. Strong play, strong expansion by Persia, strong play. They're taking the city from Rome. I'm pretty sure they'll be able to take this city this session if they want to. We'll see if they go for it. Or maybe they decide to pressure forward and ignore that city and make a decisive blow against the Roman military. That certainly is a viable option. We have scouts in the north, so we know things like raids are coming. We can see this. I'm looking at the full extent of the Persian vision. We can see lots of military in the north. We see raids and aggro coming. So it certainly is viable to attempt a sort of blitz style, engage in a conflict. I don't think I would do that personally in this situation. But, you probably want to wait for a little bit more firepower, either your unique unit. In fact, let's check laws. Persia has 2 laws active. Rome has 2 laws active. Both players are similar and competent. Hello, Sino. Welcome to the cast. Thanks for joining in. And yeah, this looks like a terrible region for combat. In fact, maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to cut this scrub, because if Palatins get up on these hills, they'll be able to fire down on you. That could actually accidentally work to the advantage of the Palatins. Tricky, tricky, tricky conundrum. The Persian unique unit is really, really good, so they're always difficult to deal with. There was a bit of rebel trouble. Now we're angry with the Statesman family, and we have only 2 cities, but a little bit of rebel spawn. Let's see what's up bothering them. Oh, they were in full rebellion. All right, so that's fine. That'll decay in a little bit. Full rebellion is an event that hits you with minus 400 opinion. However, it decays in 5 turns, so it goes away pretty quickly. So not too bad. Not as bad as it sounds. Scholar on the throne for the Romans. A swift, strict Delver scholar who is divine. Not too bad there. What we got for... Ooh! We can get a landowner hunters with the Sentinel ability. That's amazing. So this is fun. If you are a Pathfinder governor and build a ranged unit. This is one of the ways to read event requirements, by the way, if you ever happen. Anything that's listed here in green. And also make sure you check out the ellipses, the whole ... thing, because that will tell you more requirements. So if you have a governor in a city that's Pathfinder, and you build a ranged unit, and again, just to be clear, this is not guaranteed, it's a random chance, but that could give you an event that allows you to get Sentinel on that unit. Really nice. When you happen to notice events that seem pretty good, make a little note, or remember what it is that you did to trigger it, because maybe it could come in handy in the future. Don't be like me and orient your entire gameplay around them, because that can backfire. But I don't, I'm a board gamer, so I don't mind drawing cards and rolling dice to have a good game in a strategy game. It's kind of par for the course where I come from. So I kind of treat the event system like a massive, massive big deck of cards, right? Anything I can do to get a new card draw or increase the chance of an outcome that I'm aware of, I will try to do so, but not necessarily the best way to play. Just how I like to play. Yeah, so Rome's big thing right now is they need orders. We're building a garrison, great. We're building another garrison, fantastic. No garrison in the capital, need some capital. Need some garrisons in the capital, and we have military drill pegged, which is fantastic. We need all of that. We need barracks, we need garrisons. I'm gonna hop back over to the tech tree of the Romans real quick, and we need navigation, because we know that the Persians have navigation, so we're behind on Law Temple. Grabbing monasticism would also be really handy, because we have Zoro. We got Zoro, and it's not decently spread yet, only in 2 cities, but in the time it takes us to go up to monasticism, that could be a good grab. However, it does look like the Romans are grabbing husbandry, which I appreciate, because that's also going to be more orders. I'm pretty sure there are a few horses on the map. There's one there. There's one here, 2 here, 2 here. So that's more orders, more up here. That's really nice. So that's a good grab. And more importantly, I really do think chariots will come in handy for the Romans. The nice thing about chariots that I think often gets overlooked, especially for nations that are champ nations, because Ueze is the only exception to this rule. Being able to build chariots in a champion nation, it's actually amazing. And apart from Ueze, none of the champion nations start with husbandry. So it's a really nice synergy there. And chariots or the ability to rout are always, always useful. You have a Persian military that you can kind of predict is going to do 3 things. They're going to rely on their unique unit because it's fantastic. So that is a routing unit, and it's a horse unit. They're going to rely on slingers, because slingers are fantastic, and also they will likely have hunters, which this nation does. So you can expect that. And then you can often predict the fact that, and as we're seeing right now, I'm going to hop back over to Persia. You can often predict the fact that they're going to go for steel. Why are they going to go for steel? Because, again, their unique unit is fantastic, and they're going to want to counter the counter. So if you look at the bulk of that, if you consider the bulk of that composition, right, Paladins and or Cataphracts, archers, slingers, and axes, right, none of that can dodge a route. The Persians will have to grab phalanx to avoid that, and that's kind of out of the way of their overall priorities, if you think about it, because they're thinking about laws. Although it is on the way to citizenship, that's always a good grab, but I feel like their major priorities will be 4 laws to the tune of either sovereignty or navigation, this kind of lower half section, and then obviously getting axes to counter spears, and then they're going to be relying on slingers and maybe, I don't know, probably not warriors, because that's what the axes are for, right? So they're kind of bread and butter, turn 50, turn 60 composition for the average Persian Empire is probably not very spear heavy. So if you're the Romans, right, a champ nation like the Romans or the Axumites, you could kind of pull a little bit of a about face on your opponent. Get husbandry, get spoked wheel, and churn out a bunch of chariots. And I really think that configuration would do well against your average Persian military, because they're going to be planning on spears. And rightly so, because spears also will be valuable. So I'm not saying don't get spears, but I think the Hittites and the Persians in particular would be surprised by a Roman player that says, oh yeah, hey, me too, I also have a bunch of chariots. So that's something to think about if you're playing Rome or Axum or who else is a champ nation? Assyria even. I get the sense that sometimes when you don't have this path, when you don't start with husbandry, like all the husbandry nations are happy to get spoked wheel for the most part, from what I've noticed. But I feel like lots of players who don't start with husbandry kind of don't really prioritize it. But if you're really going to be skirmishing in the first 60 turns, which seems like it's a bit of a pattern in some of these early matches, like an early 60-turn fight or mid-game fight, having route is incredible. Especially, again, just to end this point, especially with Rome. Because we already have a swift ruler on the throne currently. She's 39 years old, so in theory she could be around for another 20 turns, right? And it's Rome, so they have the extra fatigue. So imagine if we already had a few chariots out in the board. This is what a warrior can do. A warrior can go out here. Imagine if this was a chariot. A chariot would probably be able to get all the way back here and flank and attack and route however we want. So, the Roman chariot is something I would advise maybe our Roman fans who like playing Rome to consider as an option to put in their military as maybe a unique choice. It does seem like Persia is deliberately avoiding founding paganism. Good catch. But it is a late divination, turn 46, and we're only on turn 52. Let's take a peek and see if we can see anybody building a shrine. No, not yet currently. Whether that was deliberate or maybe just not part of their intended tech path. What is linked in the tech tree? I don't see anything marked. But yeah, that's certainly a tech... I think that's probably the most common thing that you're going to see with the Jewish nations, which are essentially the husbandry nations. So USA, well, I mean, I guess USA is going to have the Hinduism, so they don't really care. And of course, if you bring in clerics, you probably care less too. Well, actually, no, never mind. Forgive me, because that's the Hinduism. That's what makes them not care, because their divination religion, their pagan, quote-unquote pagan religion, it also doubles as a world religion hybrid. So yeah, but Persia and the Hittites, I can see lots of situations where you'll probably just see Jewish exclusive nations for quite a while. I think it's a more viable tactic for the Hittites because I think the shrines on Persia are better, or they synergize better. The +1 range shrine is both nations have. But I feel like as Persia, I almost always want to put that shrine out because, A, I start with slingers, The Hittites need to pivot to grab slingers, which is fine. It's a good pivot. And then also my unique unit as a Persia is a ranged unit, so there's extra synergy there, where that is not the case for the Hittites. So I feel like with the Hittites, you can do the whole avoid divination thing, and it's not really a big deal. I don't really think it's a big deal for Persia either, but it's a little bit more of a deal for them than it would be for Hattie. Our players are playing for approximately 2 hours today, which is one of the reasons why I took a second match this evening, because assuming that this concludes in 2 hours, I will be able to hop right into a different session and get some coverage on that. 10 people in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. It means a lot. I love that we're all on this journey together, watching everybody sink their teeth into some old world multiplayer. It's really fun. And special thanks to all the people who are tuning in after the fact. Try not to burn yourselves on old world content. There's old world content. See, I already can't speak. I'm mumbling all over the place now. I think it's because I'm casting a lot, to be honest, but that's fine. All right, yeah, so I like that we decided to go clear. This makes sense. I really, really don't think we should invest too much in trying to save this city. If we can sneak these warriors and slingers away... Honestly, I don't even think that's worth the order. I don't even think I would have finished this slinger. Maybe this will just make it a little bit harder for him to take the city, wasting his orders a little bit. But really, Rome should not invest too much in trying to hang on to the city. But yeah, be sure not to burn yourself out on old world content, because we are only about 25 games into a 150 game season. So I think if we manage to capture even 80% of this season, I believe you will have enough, if you would really try to watch the entire season, which I don't even know would be possible, you have enough content for the rest of the year. And of course, there will be an off season, because there's no way we're going to dive directly into another one of these once we finish up. There will at least be a 6-minute break if we do a season 4. No, a 6 minute. All right, 6 minutes is up. Season 4. My bad. Sorry, that just tickled me so much. A 6-month break is what I meant. That sounds like something I would do. All right, 6 minutes and we start the next season. We just crowned our champion. 150 games, 6 minutes. Who's ready to go for another round? No, we'll probably take a 6 to 8 month break before we start up a new season. So plenty of time to catch up on all old world content. And of course, last year's season, season 2, just ended in March. So there's tons of videos from the last season to catch up on if you really are getting the itch for lots of commented, casted games. Let me look at the chat here. Wildwork says, thanks for casting, just joined the stream. How did Rome end up with a city so forward in Persia? Rome settled these two cities. So Rome's settling pattern was actually directly west. They came this way, this way, this way. In fact, you can tell by the location of their city sites, they forward settled a little bit, and then they continued clearing along this side of the map. They took this city and then settled this city. This actually had a Roman name. Meanwhile, Persia was expanding, and they did not go in that direction. So this is one of the things I really like about point symmetry, because basically when you start in your corner, you have a decision. Are you going completely across the map, or you're going north on quote-unquote your side of the map? And both players could make the opposite decision. So Rome could have gone all the way north up this way, right? And then once they get to this northern part of the map, well, Persia could have decided to go east. So you could meet early, which is what happened here, or you could pick opposite directions. One could go, or the same direction, I guess. You could both choose to go across the map, in which case Rome gets all the way over here, Persia gets all the way over here, and you're both expanded to different parts of the map. And what's interesting about that is then you have a complete Roman army on this side of the map near your core, and then you have a Persian army on this side of the map near the Roman core. So yeah, the point symmetry mechanic for map generation, I think, is one of the best additions to this game. We do have plenty of map scripts that do not use point symmetry in the tournament, because we do like having the opposite sides feeding into mechanic a little bit. But point symmetry is really cool. We have a drought. Doom has come to the old world, and we have a global drought. Let's see. Well, we'll have to wait a turn, but let's see who survives the drought. So I think this is hit on Rome's turn. So Rome actually has positive food. I'm always curious by this. I always ask my opponent when a drought hits. I'm always curious who remains in the positive food generation once a drought hits. I think that's a big advantage of granaries, and I like to build a lot of granaries. So sometimes a drought will hit, and my opponent will be bleeding food income, because food always becomes pretty expensive. So maybe their food income was low, or maybe their stockpile was low, and now their coffers are being drained, trying to keep up with the crash of the food market. And I always like the little flavor of the economic warfare of a drought, because I love food improvements. So I often tend to have a pretty decent food income and can usually weather a drought quite nicely. So once Persia's turn comes along, we'll see how they're weathering the drought as well. Military drill in 3 turns for the Romans. Really nice pickup. His garrisons are finished as well. Going to be finished soon as well. I hope you start one in the capital at some point. Triple boats in the capital mean both players are probably fine. Good catch, Sino. Yes, that's true. Fish are not impacted by droughts. And of course, yeah, I think things are looking good here. Actually, I want to look at the overall economy. So let's look at iron. I'm intrigued by that for a moment. Nice iron income, and the reason why I'm intrigued by iron is because both Persia and Rome use a lot of iron in their compositions. So the Rome has the edge there. Stone is all to Persia, which makes sense because they built a wonder. Oh, I never realized this showed the total accumulated stone or resource in the game. I think I missed that addition. That's cool. That's cool. Oh, it'll be really cool to parse those numbers and see how those impact the game. So, like right now, for example, both Persia and Rome have brought in about 11 to 1,200 stone resources. That's really interesting to think about how that might impact a map or a match. Comp bow for the Persians. Love that grab. I don't think we've seen enough archer. I don't know that I would call turn 60 necessarily rush. Maybe. I mean, that's fair. We're still in the... neither of these players are close to 4 laws. Neither of these players have, like, skyrocketed science. So I would say this is still within the early game-ish, even though we are actually entering mid-game territory. But yeah, I don't think we've seen enough out of archers being flexed in this tournament so far. There was a point in time, and to be clear, nothing about archers has been nerfed since this time. I just think other strategies have, taken the forefront and kind of been flexed and shown off more. And, they're all viable, but there was a point in time where my personal opinion was that an archer rush was essentially virtually unstoppable. Because it's really, really, really hard to deal with like 10 archers coming your way, especially if it has a free ballista in tow. Of course, mounted units can deal with that nicely, but even so, it's so order efficient. So with Persia, who's already order efficient, I think getting an early comp bow, mass upgrading these archers, and having axes, we can see some spears coming in now. That could be a big deal. Persia is going for the Roman city. The tactician's done. Yeah, this is done. So Rome should not even flinch at this. Rome should... I wouldn't even repair this, to be honest. I wouldn't even bother repairing this. I know that would make Persia spend a few more orders, but I might actually Well, maybe I would repair it. I don't know. Sometimes I've done council on dying cities just to get the last ounce of efficiency out of that city that I could. If we look down here in Rome, however, it seems like an event has given us a foreign raid, which makes sense. There is an event associated with the plague, asks you to pay some food. There was plenty of food in Rome, but it looks like he didn't want to pay it, and that's fine. His entire army is right here. So if it told me that Mogantium was going to have a foreign raid, I also wouldn't give a shit because I have my entire army right here. Maybe if my entire army was north, I would pay the food, but there's no real reason for Rome to pay the food. They can just get the free XP here, or pay the orders for the XP. Oh, right, I didn't check on Persia. Persia weathering... Oh, Persia is not weathering the drought. Persia has negative 25 food. So the winner of drought preparation in this particular game is the Romans. And that means nothing at all, and probably will have very little to zero impact on this game, but it's always a neat little thing whenever the drought... I like the global calamities, because I think it's interesting that both players are having like a shared experience on that front of... Because droughts suck, and plagues suck even more. So they're both players kind of get this oh shit moment, and it's always intriguing to me to think, well, who's handling it, the plague or the drought, better? So, as an observer, I can check in on that. And it's the Romans. The Romans have weathered the drought just fine. Yeah, interesting. Steno is taking credit for the cumulative resource yields. That's awesome, man. That's one thing I really like about... Excuse me, I was taking a sip of my tea. That's something I really like about being a part of this community. And, you know, the openness of the developers to listening to us and taking feedback. And it's not even just people who are, you know, for lack of a better phrase, regulars in the community. It's also, I've seen people randomly walk onto Discord, ask for a feature, and then I've seen that feature end up in the game like a week later. So if they're not allergic to a really good idea, which is one of the things that makes them amazing. But yeah, what it also means is our collective fingerprints as a community are all over this game. Like, my fingerprints are, for better or worse, by the way, because I know sometimes I want changes that other people hate. But for better or worse, my fingerprints are all over this game. And sure, I'm absolutely not the only one. We all have made suggestions, and Mohawk is never allergic to a good idea, which I think is cool. Which I think is really cool. There is an icon in my chat that doesn't allow me to see the last word whenever somebody types something. So hold on, I'm just gonna move that up. Okay, there we go. I just was trying to read the full thing that Purple Moose was just saying, so I apologize that in chat. Purple Bull Moose asks, because of the sentiment, would it not be appropriate for in competitive mode on mirror maps that calamities also be mirrored? No, I don't think so. Because you're going to get that a little bit anyway. So if you have a location that's prime territory for a sandstorm, you're going to get sandstorms in that location. But also, the calamities are already programmed to bounce back and forth between both players anyway. So basically, and this is true even in free-for-alls, so essentially the way it works is that a calamity, when it fires, so if a calamity fires in Rome, right? Rome's not going to get another calamity until Persia gets a calamity. And for the most part, apart from like maybe some, you know, random exceptions or inconsistencies, because I don't know how it tabulates global calamities in that process, to be honest. But for the most part, they're just going to bounce their calamities back and forth. And just as my personal feeling, why I don't want it to be mirrored is because it makes it less interesting if both sides of the map get, you know, if a sandstorm hits this location and this location at the exact same time. That's less interesting than if a sandstorm hits this location in a particular moment and has an impact, and then later on in the game, and this counts as, let's say, Rome's calamity, and then later on, when something's going on over here or whatever, an earthquake hits. So I'm fine with, as long as they relatively evenly distribute. And I think we looked at the data last tournament and did discover that for the most part they do pretty evenly. They, the calamities volleyball back and forth between the two players, but no, they are not mirrored in that sense. They could be, but I think it's fine. I think as long as each player is getting hit by an unfortunate event within a similar time frame, I think that's fine. But certainly a suggestion if you think it's important. Calamities in competitive mode have never really bothered me, though. But everybody knows that at this point, I think. Alright, this raid should get cleared up pretty easily. How are we doing up north with the tribal stuff? Looks like we're struggling up here. Politics in... where does rebel come from? Because politics in Rome is fine. Yes, potentially moves. Of course, it could go the other way around. So you could get an earthquake in here and be like, cool, I got my calamity. Then you could attack into this region right here, because obviously the Romans are here. So let's say you're the Persians, you get an earthquake, and you're like, cool, the omen of doom has passed. I'm going to attack now. Then you attack into the Kafayau woodland, and all this is our territory, right? So next thing you know, a sandstorm hits, and this is technically Roman's calamity, but it hits both of you in the whole region, and so that could mess you up. So it's not 100% predictable, but yeah, sure, absolutely. If you see a sandstorm hit this region, and then, a bunch of Roman units take damage, you can absolutely choose to launch an attack with some level of safety that you're not going to get messed with by a calamity, because odds are the next calamity that hits is going to be somewhere that affects your territory. So maybe you get an earthquake back here, or a hurricane up here, things like that. So yeah, absolutely. If you're aware of the kind of ping-ponging mechanic, you can kind of plan around them, but it's kind of like... same thing, kind of like how the ancients did it. They're like portents of doom. It's like you notice the drought has ended, and maybe that gives you a sense of like, okay, things will be safe for about 10 turns or what. Because that's another thing. I think we looked at it, and it was something like anywhere from 6 to 10 turns back and forth between calamities. I forget. You'd have to look at the old world stats for the previous tournament, but we do have data on it. And yeah, so I think you can use it to make some decision making. Okay, more rebels popping up. I don't know what event that was, but I'm not seeing. That must have been maybe a different type of rebellion. So Rome has lots to work with on there. They have a drought, they have a foreign invasion, they have rebels. That actually was in 2 different families, so I'm not really sure what's up with that. Normally, if it's a rebellion, it's only one family. Oh, and in the capital. Oh. I have a guess. Did they choose one of the slave revolt? Can dump a bunch of rebels on you if you choose one of the options as it progresses. So maybe they decided to just deal with the slave revolt through military means, which, not my first choice, but I've done it. Because normally when you select the rebel option, they give you something crazy like 12 orders. So maybe that's what we're seeing here. The slave revolt. I do believe it picks 3 different cities and spawns 2 rebels each. Let's take a look at the order econ again. Okay, so really good news for the Romans is the Persian order econ has taken a dip. I'm going to guess that's from a ruler dying. However, still 13 to 20, so Rome has some catching up to do. But, I mean, I feel like that's always the case. You always have to catch up to Persia in the order econ. Which is one of the things that makes it obnoxious to fight Persia, because I don't know, I feel like from turn 5, I always feel like I'm behind. And that's also true of Maria as well, because Maria can choose the exact same family configurations as Persia, with the exception of clerics. But they can do this. They can do the same configuration you're seeing here. They can do riders, hunters, and champions. The Marians can. And apart from the, the order boost on pasture, that's essentially Persia, just with, with as Maria. So that's something to think about, and one of the reasons why I actually think Maria is really strong and probably a little underrated. I think everybody thinks they're good, but nobody thinks that they're super strong, but I actually think they're super strong. This city will come down in probably another turn. And the good news for the Romans, and I really like that they're abandoning this city. I said this at the start of the stream. But so the good news for the Romans is for a few turns, that order advantage, I mean, Persia is spending a minimum of 7 orders per turn trying to take the city, but we also had to move up here over a couple of turns, so that's more than 7 orders per turn overall on average. So that if we go back to this order graph and we think about, I said at the start of the stream, Rome does not really want to get into a war with Persia right now because it will sap Roman orders, and yet Persia will very likely have the orders to keep running a little bit of their economy in the background, right? So this is really a great example of it happening in action, because if we average about 7 to 10 orders per turn trying to take this city, well, that actually almost completely bridges this gap we're seeing, with Rome having 20 orders and Persia having 33. So that's about 7 or more orders per turn until this city falls. That's not going into the Persian economy, and that's great news for Rome, despite the fact that they're losing a city, because they clearly have plenty of orders to spend on stuff. They have so much stuff right here. I think they got a couple of events in addition to the rebel stuff that caused militia to spawn as well. So let's take a look at power score. Yeah, the Romans have crept up. I think they're still similar at this point. Yeah, they're still similar, but the Romans have a little bit of a power advantage. Really hoping that they decide to grab chariots at some point. I mean, it is going to be a tough hill for Rome to climb, because once this city does fall, the Persians will have completely expanded their side of the map. They will own the western side of the map, and that will give them 9 cities to Romans 6, and Rome still has to, I mean, they technically don't have to clear, but this is a lot of order investment to capture all of these cities if they're aiming to do it. You could opt, depending on the game state and what your game plan is, you could opt, even in this situation, because I don't really think 9 cities to 6 is an insurmountable advantage. It certainly is an advantage. You probably don't want to be in that position against Persia of all nations. But in theory, you could opt to clear this Barb camp, bring yourself up to 7 versus 9, and then just truce out the Thracians and peace out the Thracians and forget about them while you focus on your economy and build up. That's totally a viable way to handle this mid-game situation where you kind of didn't expand fast enough, and there's so much order investment into clearing these tribes. Meanwhile, your opponent is going to sit on the other side of the map with their order advantage, with their city advantage, and just keep developing their cities. It might actually be smarter in a lot of cases to just not clear this stuff, stop the raid potential, and spend all the orders you would have spent clearing on this stuff just developing your economy as best you can, because that's way more orders going into building more improvements, more resources, moving units, promoting units, and all that fun good stuff. Certainly a tricky call to make, of course, but definitely a viable one, I think. I don't think players explore piecing out tribes in this game, especially in this dual meta, enough. I think there's this mentality of I need to clear every site, and I'm not done expanding until I clear every site. And there's certainly truth to that, but I think you have to react to the game state and kind of get a sense of, is it actually worth it for you to spend all the time, orders, and effort to settle? Like, think about this final... Oh, actually, we have peace. Did we get an event? So this would be our option. If we got that tribal invasion... Oh, and we have another rebel. Wow, 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 wow. How many rebels and raiders in our territory now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 now, and we've already killed a few each turn. Yes, says clearing tribes with warriors on turn 60 is not at all a fun time. And turn 60 is right around the time that your opponent can take their stuff and start harassing you and attacking you. So yeah, definitely a moment in time in the game where you need to make a decision if trying to do the clearing thing is even worth it. And even when people have decided the answer to that is no, I still don't see people piecing tribes enough. And so what they end up happening is they decide, okay, I'm not going to clear this land, but then they get this trickle of raids down to this city constantly, so they're still wasting orders on it. Just spend the civics, spend the time, take the deviation to get an ambassador over those guys, if you can, right? Obviously, it's not always easy, but the Thracians... Oh, sorry, this is Persia. All right, the Thracians hate the Romans, so never mind. It actually can be harder to piece them out. But something to think about, nonetheless. All right, the second Roman city has fallen. Persia has completely secured dominance of the Indus River and their side of the map. What's our layout here? We have, for Persia, we have 2 statesman cities. Politics in Persia is fine, by the way. It looks like the statesmen eventually converted to Judaism, resolving all of our issues. And we saw a couple of games recently. I think the last 2 games that I was watching happened to be games where players were ignoring religion for the majority of the game. And I'm talking like no divination until turn 50 and no, founded religion. Really, really, really tough thing to handle because your primary solution, your primary problem solver for opinion in this game is religion. Think of it this way. We're getting an extra 119 in each of these families, 119 opinion in each of these families from this religion. That would mean the statesman family would be cautious, and the hunter city would be upset if neither of them had a religion right now. So, important not to neglect your politics. They really impact the state of the game in the long term, and they certainly impact the state of the game during a conflict. 4 turns on comp bow for the Persians. I'd be really curious. One thing, if anyone is equipped to do a chopping spree, it is the Persians. You could literally just take this worker, this statesman worker, and run down this corridor for like 2 or 3 turns and just chop, 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 chop everything. Clear chop, absolutely everything. Even the scrub, doesn't matter. Force march it if you want. We have plenty of training. Just take 2 or 3 turns and just dump the majority of each turn into chopping wood. I will do that with pretty much any nation, but if anyone can get away with that, it's absolutely the Persians who have the order economy to go on chopping sprees. You can even take this guy, chop a bunch of this stuff. You can mass upgrade these guys to archers and see what damage you can do. Rome does look pretty entrenched, so probably not necessarily the best idea in this case, but I definitely hope we see some players explore some comp bow archer rushing in the tournament, because I do believe it's still pretty powerful. With, of course, the right timing, the right map, and the right nation. I think Assyria in particular is very strong at it. They start with military drill, so they can get to comp bow super early. And all of their archers are going to have focus, which is just nightmarish. So I think of any nation that's probably best suited for the comp bow rush, it's probably Assyria. And then there's a fun, weird strategy that I've done with Egypt, actually. Egypt starts with their 400 stone. If you go if you go trapping early, rather than getting a wonder or a bunch of, urban buildings with their stone, you could just build yourself, 2, 4, 6, 8 slingers. Mass build yourself slingers. Migrate them across the map as you're expanding while you're teching to comp bow. Keep on your chopping sprees, and then boom, next thing you know, you have like 10 archers coming out towards your opponent's border, and I've definitely killed a player once or twice with that strategy as well. Anything like that is risky, though, so be careful if you ever consider doing something like that in a duel, because ultimately I think the best way to play is probably playing safe. But I like being aggressive. So, Finally clearing up the crisis in Rome. The drought has subsided. We're back to 56 wood and the food income per turn. And the Persians are, I don't know if they've healed from the drought yet, so we'll check on that. And we're finally clearing up this rebellion. These rebellions are so costly, though, because not only are we spending orders to kill all this stuff locally, we're still going to have to send units back to Roma. The rebels, while not really the end of the world, boy, are they an extreme order tax. At a time where we need our orders to do all sorts of stuff. In fact, I worry that Rome is spending so many orders on cleanup that we're not spending enough orders on economic development, which is exactly what we need to keep pace with Persia. Navigation in 5 turns for the Romans. Let's take a peek where we're at in the tech tree. That will be their 3rd law. They have monasticism pinged now, which I like because they have Zorro, so that will be more orders. Nice to see that. Nice to see that. And well, the good news is that politics in Rome is fantastic now, too. I feel like a moment ago it wasn't as good. I think it was, maybe it was good, but I think one of the families was upset. Maybe they didn't have a religion or they had the wrong religion. But yeah, really nice relationship with the pagan head. He's in love with us. Ooh, and we have the open air. This is exactly what I need. And I say that because that's actually the text on the first option. But very nice. We just got husbandry, and we can get an ambition to build 6 pastures. That's great. That is really, really great. So I think we should accept this, because if we take a peek here, we just built the 1, so that will count. There's 2 here. Well, let's take a peek. 3, 4, 5 under construction, 6. Yeah, we have the 6 pastures in our empire right now. So I'm really hoping that he grabs this. This is really, really nice ambition. This is a pretty easy grab for the USA too, because the only thing that this requires is for you to finish a pasture. And he didn't accept it. Why? You're young enough that you can build 6 pastures in your lifespan. That blows my mind. That you just tossed yourself 10 legitimacy out the window. That's wild to me. We have all the pastures we need. We have exactly 6 in the empire, if not more. I counted 6. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. That's wild. That seems like a waste. I don't even remember what the other option was. It was like courage on our ruler. And that's like the perfect example of a situation with, dude, if you have the ability to accept an ambition that you know you can complete in the next 10 turns or 15 turns, absolutely accept that ambition. Because most of the time, you're straddled with the tough choice of being like, ooh, how long will that ambition actually take me? Like, here we have complete an opulence point. Here we have stockpile 2,000 food. Both of these are possible, but they can be tricky to finish, because even though we have positive food income, and we're at a high stockpile now at 844, what if we want to keep spamming specialists? You can be surprised 20 turns from now that you're just conducting business as usual, and then you're about to die, and now this has devolved to a legacy because you're at like 1,600 food, but you can't really hit 2,000 yet because you've been spending too much. Although, the nice thing about these stockpiled ones is you can always top them off if you get close with gold. But the opulence one feels like it's going to be a burner. I feel like we're not even making progress on that. I don't think we're building any estates in Persia, and we probably don't even want to build estates in Persia. So yeah, this is probably just going to be a loss of 5 legitimacy. And the way I look at that is, if you were to finish this, it would be 10 legitimacy. If you fail it, it loses you 5 legitimacy. So in my mind, every ambition you don't complete, every ambition you fail, is actually a loss of 15 legitimacy. Of course, that's not 100% how it maths out, but that is enough motivation for me to make sure that I say no to ambitions that I can't complete, and yes to ambitions that seem easy enough. Alright, so this is interesting. The Persians have vision on this northern Roman army. They also have vision on the Thracians, and should be aware of the fact that the Thracians are... Wait a minute. What is happening? Did they just attack? I thought they were at peace. Oh, no, they were at peace with Persia. My bad. I mixed that up. They're still at war with Rome. No. What is happening? Go to Rome. They're at war with Rome. My bad. They're still at war with Rome. So they're at peace with Persia. Which is nice. What they could do is they could move their army north here, stage near this Thracian camp, wait for a raid to fire, for it to go south down the river, and then clear the camp nice and easy with no problem after breaking the peace. Good vision here from the Persians, by the way. Let's check on the vision from the Romans side. Romans have a peak towards the core, but they're not really seeing anything. So I mean, I guess they have good frontier vision here as well. Yeah, not too bad, I guess. For the Romans. 3 scouts for the Romans, which is nice. So we know they built 2 of them, or got a couple from events, which is really, really handy. It's always, you never really want to build a scout. You never, I mean, feeling-wise, you never feel like building a scout, but once you have 3 or 5, a 3 to 5, it's amazing to have extra scouts. I love building extra scouts. Hard to thread them in, but if you can manage to do it, it's really amazing. Alright, just be right back real quick. Okay, and we're back. We're back. Rome's turn 59 is finishing up. Let's see what else I can see. We're spamming the decree thing. I talked about this in a different video. I'm not really sure how I feel about just decreeing randomly, but it works for a lot of people, so go nuts. We're finally building a garrison in Roma, which is great. And who founded Rome? Oh, Christianity. Oh, it was the Persians. Okay. And everything down south is clear. Oh, and we're getting a trapper. I actually don't mind this. Anything to get that order econ up. We're pretty strong on military right now, so we don't necessarily need to be building more units. There aren't any barracks up and running in the city. I think sometimes people hang on to their citizens for too long. They think, you know, oh, you know, I'm not going to build something because I want to save this to be an officer. We still have the extra 2 citizens anyway. But I'm in favor, especially now that the costs are reduced, of putting trappers in camps. I think it's very important to get order to everywhere you can. Persians continue to seem to migrate north. So we will see some northern pressure in the north from the Persians on the remaining sides of these maps. In fact, MongrelEyes himself has pegged this site with a notification asking if he should place riders here. So let's look at the known world according to Persia. This is the known world according to Persia. So they are well aware of this side of the map, and this is the known world according to Rome. So actually Rome has done less scouting on their side of the map than Persia has, which kind of makes sense because the rider's extra scout, but Rome actually has 3 scouts on the map, so that's a little surprising to me now. Queen Roxana the New has taken the throne. A young child who is humble and cruel and ruthless. Interesting. We take a commander. on the throne. Politics takes a hit here. States are unhappy, but we can bring them back up by 80 opinion if we want to spend the food. So this goes back to what I'm talking about. You know, dumping 170 food on 80 opinion is actually something I do, but we have this ambition to stockpile 20,000 food, and now we also only have 20 years to complete it. The same thing with the Opulence Project. So very likely the Opulence Project is just not going to get completed, and it's entirely possible, depending on what goes on, that the food one doesn't get completed. So it's really, really tricky to juggle ambitions, especially because leaders can die, all that fun stuff. So have to be very intentional and mindful of the decisions you make with your ambitions. It will really, really, really improve your legitimacy game. Legitimacy for both players is relatively even, 126 to 19 in favor of the Persians. What's our heir in Rome? Let's take a look at a builder. Ooh, that'll be really nice. If we can get our economy up and running, we could do some mid-game wonder spamming, which could be quite nicely. Which would be quite nice. I think builders on the throne in the mid-game are nice, and also builders on the throne in the end game, if you're trying to close out a point victory, are probably, in that specific case, the best ruler you could have. Because if you are trying to put your opponent up on the clock with, you know, turtle wonder spamming, and you have a builder on the throne, man, does that speed it up so much. It's really, really hard to point race a builder. Super, super hard. They make fantastic finishers. All right, almost done with this rebellion, and lots of pillaging happening, so that's more order taxing on the part of the Romans. There's a bit of a crisis of the 3rd century thing happening for the Romans in this particular game, and you know, that's one of the things that can happen in these games, and I like that. You know, I like that sometimes these games can develop into a situation of you know, can a player manage the internal aspect of their empire appropriately, such that they don't kind of collapse in on themselves. It's one of the things I like about the game. I think it's really neat. Because sometimes you can have games like this where you do have this type of crisis, but then you come back in the late game anyway. So that's always neat. One turn to combo for the Persians. We do have a rebels spawning once more in the statesman's locations. The states are angry. Oh, they're now upset again, which is nice. Probably got an event for that. Oh, and Roxana has taken the throne. So we can get 120 science right now. Always a great secession event. This is one of the odd perks about if you have a little bit of succession crisis. Obviously, it's horrible for your opinion and legitimacy. But if you get a couple of sweet secession events back to back, that can actually propel you forward a little bit. And we are a zealot on the throne. Oh boy. We have a real game now. We could actually, with this science, we didn't opt for the science. What did we opt for? The event decisions in this game are blowing my mind. We passed up 120 science, I assume for the civics, maybe. Or, yeah, I don't know what for. Science seems like a no-brainer there, because we could have spent... I think we're getting ready to push in towards the Roman side of the map. We could have spent this turn upgrading slingers to archers if we wanted to. We're doing some roading, and I'm going to assume this is aggressive roading, so I love to see that level of preparation too. Getting ready to deal with... Oh, disciples are fantastic for chopping sprees, by the way. They have better mobility than workers, so you can just send them out into the woods and just chop a whole bunch of stuff down. I love using disciples for chopping. All right, lots of staging up north. A second worker. Is this a third worker? All right, so we could begin our worker chain. Are we going to do it? Worker just in time in Raga. Pull from the back, and you have your 3 workers in place, ready to worker chain. And from that moment on, until the road is finished, it will be just as efficient as a trader's worker. One of my favorite little tricks. Chop a squad. Yeah, also that. We passed the turns to the Romans. Or we ran out of time. So really hoping he spots this worker and gets another road up and running. He doesn't have to, but it would be nice. Let's see what the Romans are aware of with respect to this. Oh, wow, this is just out of sight for Roman vision. They might have seen some filtering through this territory, but in terms of the actual staging, they have no clue. No clue that the Persians are ready to make a move. And unfortunately, the Roman army in the north is a bit exhausted right now. They're going to have to take some time healing up. They're not yet ready to go north and clear. And they will also not yet be ready to deal with what will be archers and axes coming to contest this territory. And the rebellion in Rome is almost crushed. I wonder, too, sometimes if you don't select an event option before your opponent ends their turn, I wonder if it does select the option for you at random. So that's one reason to make sure that you, go through your ambitions. Because if you run out of time on your opponent's turn, you could accidentally have an option that you don't want selected for you. So I wonder if maybe something like that happened with this slave rebellion stuff. Because I think it has to be a very specific, intentional moment. I have, myself, personally, accepted the slave revolt. You know, the half a dozen units or whatever in my empire and just dealt with them. But it's very specific and niche circumstances where I think it's worth it to do that. I think one of the times I did that, I actually had the epics law enacted, so I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll take an extra 30 culture in 3 of my cities, and things like that, so. Interesting to see them still fighting with warriors and slingers. Are any of them close to unique units? Not really. Rome is about to get their 3rd law. Persia's still on 2. 3 turns with aristocracy will be their 3rd law. So I guess they're relatively close. We're worker chaining, and we pulled from the back with the states, and here we go. Boom. If you do it that way, so we did statesmen forward, and we did the hunters forward, and then we did the riders forward. And then if you look here, look at this. This is the full length. And just to emphasize the point, if this was all road, you would still transition into your next fatigue point at this point, right? So this is why the worker chain, you always pull from the back, because you'll move all the way up here and build a road. So now, why do you always pull from the back? Because if we pull forward, right, we move forward and eroded. If we grab this worker, same thing. We would actually spend the next fatigue to get to this tile. So it's the most order efficient, outside of a trader's worker, obviously. It's the most orders efficient to put 3 workers in a row, pull from the back, and go 1 order, build a road. 2 order, build a road. 3 order, build a road. And if you math that out, what if this was a trader's worker? He would go, and he was standing right here, he would go 1 order, build a road, 2 order, build a road, 3 order, build a road. So once the chain is actually set up, the worker chain is just at the 3 workers is just as efficient as a traded worker. Yes, you're going to spend more orders setting the chain up and breaking it down at the end, but in terms of actually getting the road built on time across like 3, 4, 5 turns, 3 workers does exactly what a traded worker can do. And if you have 3 traded workers, then it gets crazy. Then it gets really crazy. And I apologize if people hear me say the same tips over and over again. I'm trying to make sure that as we go through this first round and we have lots of newer players tuning into their own streams, that I do my best to try and make sure that these kind of general tips find their way to as many ears as possible. So if that's like the fourth or fifth time I've done the whole worker chain explanation, my apologies, but I do appreciate you tuning in if you've been following along enough to hear me give the same lecture for like the fourth or fifth time, because that means a lot. I'm glad that you're here. But I do apologize if I kind of regurgitate the same tips as the tournament goes along and we go into deeper rounds and our players get better and we have more skilled opponents going up against each other. My commentary will shift slightly. So, or at least that's my goal. And I did notice that in the previous tournament as well. I feel like the beginning commentaries for a lot of us were much more, oh, you should do this, you should do this. And then the later commentaries were like, I can't believe this person did that because they should be playing better. So we'll have a lot more fun trolling and teasing our players in the coming months when we will expect them to play better and perfectly and never make any mistakes and be flawless. Still staying relatively out of sight up north. The Persians. Of course, they aren't aware that a scout is in these woods. They may be, but they don't necessarily know what, the extent of the vision is. Nice, we can do extra... Oh, we have a pet monkey. Always love the pet monkey. We can get some extra culture in Rome. Speaking of which, what's the culture status? We will be developing in less than 8 turns once we take that culture. And in the Persian Empire, we will be... strong in less than 8 turns in Rome. And in Persia, we will be strong in 4 turns. So unique units, bonus cards will be coming online soon. And to double check on science rate at this stage in the game as well, we're looking at 52 science for the Persians and 41 for the Romans. But yet, still only a 30 science gap fully invested in the tree. So Romans are keeping up tech-wise, and that's really, really good news. Because you don't want to be disadvantaged. The 3 areas that you don't, or I suppose the 4 areas, but the top 3 that matter are science, orders, and then military strength. And then the final one is economy, right? So if you're keeping pace with your opponent, at least in one of the big 3 areas, you're in a relatively safe position. That doesn't mean you can't get killed, but you definitely don't want to be behind in all 3 areas. I think in terms of actual combat, I would probably want to be behind in orders the least, because you can have a huge tech lead and a strong army. And we've seen this happen in tournament matches, in competitive matches. You can have a greater tech lead with a stronger army and still lose fights because your opponent can move twice as much stuff as you. And that's one of the incredible things about the game that I think makes a tactical masterpiece, is because that's one of the ways that it can successfully kind of sidestep the whole science is king mentality of the games of this genre, because while that still remains mostly true, there is an economic and logistical edge you can give yourself if you are falling behind in science. So that's really, really neat. And we're watching the worker chain happen in action. The pull from the back. Lovely execution, MongrelEyes. I think this is a really beautiful moment for me, because I believe I cast Mongrel's very first game last season. And I think he played Carthage in that game, and he kind of does what he does. Or maybe that was Marauder. I may be mixing them up, so forgive me, Mongrel. But the one thing I like to see is the way... so this might have been a different player, but one of the things I like to see is the way that players evolve. Because in that particular Carthage game, whoever it was, they just kind of kept building units, and then, throwing them across the map. And they did win, by the way. They overwhelmed their opponent, and they won the game. But they never built a single road. So in the post-game chat, I was like, why didn't you build a single road? And they're like, oh, well, I was too busy building units, moving the units. I didn't have the orders. I'm like, but you realize if you just built the road network across the map, you would have saved yourself so many orders across the game. And so now that person actually builds road. Whether it's Mongrel or Marauder, I can't remember. But they both build roads now, so that's nice. Oh, yeah, the knife fight. Okay, that was amazing. Mongrel was Bullmoose's first matchup, and if I could recommend literally any single game from Season 2 to go back and watch from the 2025 season, go watch Purple Bullmoose versus MongrelEyes. And if you think I get excited talking about this game now, watch me cast that game, because I was losing my mind the entire time. It was a really, really great matchup. It's a quick match, too. It's only like a 2-hour match, give or take. So, a lot of fun. Persians can get a free horse archer. I actually think I grabbed this in this situation. We know our opponent is naive, so that tells us that we have a little bit of a science lead. So yeah, especially if you have the best time to grab bonus cards, if you're ever iffy on them, well, maybe not the best time, but a good moment, a good way to think about it is if you are ahead in science, then you can actually afford to dump the science into bonus cards if you're not really a bonus card person. You could also just ignore them and continue pressing on to the areas that you're, the destinations that you're attempting to reach in time. But for me personally, a general rule of thumb is if you're behind in science, then you probably need to ignore bonus cards unless they're super important. But if you're ahead in science, you can go ahead and grab some bonus cards, because you'll still keep pace in the overall tech tree itself, like in terms of like law pacing or science technology pacing, like land consolidation or whatever. You'll still be keeping up with your opponent, even if you deviate a little bit. Monasticism keyed up for the Romans. We also have a scholar on the throne, so we can cycle. We have pastures up now. I really am hoping that we could see a cycle here into chariots. Because if we have eyes on this north, which we don't, really great movement from MongrelEyes, by the way. She's really, again, you can't account for scouts. If there was a scout in this forest, the Romans would know. And there's no way that the Persians would be able to be aware of that. So for all Mongrel knows, he could be spotted right now. But what he's still doing is he's using this this show rival player visibility tool, I believe. So if we hop back on over to the Persian side. Whoops, that was weird. Yeah, I'm under the assumption that he's checking this filter for Roman vision and making sure that he keeps his units out of sight. And then I wouldn't be surprised if he hangs out here for a little bit until there's raids, although that could be a while. So maybe he just attacks once everybody's set up. What I find fascinating here, however, is that I still don't see any archers. Alcaris is not a fan of bringing in early archers until you have wood production. Again, I think if you are the Persians of all people, you can spend time chopping wood. We do have a worker out here. Because their order economy is just insane right now. There's 37 orders per turn, which is amazing. So they can burn orders on wood. And then, yeah, as long as you close out the game or win a really solid fight, it doesn't really, the economy won't matter in the long run. Yes, this is a very important filter, guys. Sometimes there are some moments I don't really use filters all that much, but this is the one that I'll end up having be getting so frustrated sometimes that I'll just click it on like this and I'll fight a battle like this because I want to be able to know where my opponent can see, because maybe I want to go, like if we step this spear right here, if we go over to the Roman view, it will be hidden. So the Romans will not know that it's standing right there. And that actually tells us, now just to be clear about something, if the Romans had a scout in this forest or in these forests, it would not adjust the visibility that we see. You can only see the vision of stuff that you yourself are actively aware of. So even things like if this were the ocean right now and there was a boat right here and this was fog of war, like clouds, I mean, you would not see any Roman vision extend beyond the clouds because you have yet to identify the boat. So just to be very clear on that, it's not 100% foolproof. Your opponent, like I said, Rome, as far as Mongrel knows, Rome could have eyes on his army, but he's still trying to play around that vision to give him a potential edge. And yes, that's a choice you can make by keeping this visibility on. And in some ways, it's a nice way to sniff out if there are scouts around, because if the Romans started reacting to this in some way, well, then that would let you know that somewhere in these woods, whether it's this one, or this one, there's a scout and you've been spotted. So there's at least a little tactical advantage, even if it doesn't work out. Also, that's one of the values of chopping stuff. I like to take workers out here, chop stuff around here, and get rid of potential scouts. Lading. I don't know. I don't understand what lading has to do with it. Lading is an anchor thing. We were talking about vision just now. I think you'll always see anchors outside of your vision. If there was a ship here and it was anchored, you would still see the anchor radius. Okay, we have our Palatins. Did we get our bonus Palatins already? Or that? Oh, no, that's the bonus Horse Archer. Sorry, we just got that. Right, nice. So that's a nice 6 strength unit. We can put our Zealot on it if we want. Look at his mobility. We're upgrading archers. We're getting ready for conflict here. Looking solid. I want to check out the stream time because our players are only playing for 2 hours. So I think we're going to get real close to a conflict and then not be able to play, which is a little bit unfortunate. Yeah, we're 100... Wait, what? We're 1 hour... We're 100 hours into this game, kind of, really. No, we're 1 hour and 20 minutes into the stream, so this is going to go down now. Now what I want to look for, though, for the Persians is where is our settler? Okay, cool. 2 turns. Perfect. Really nice, streamlined movement from MongrelEyes. This is a massive, massive improvement from the gameplay that we've seen from him in previous seasons. And to be clear, not that I'm the most greatest player or whatever, but I played a couple games against him in like the last season. I'm pretty sure I won most, if not all of them. And then I played a practice session against Mongrel last month, and he kicked my ass. So that's the type of thing that's really fun about these that we've talked about a lot, is the fact that the more you play, obviously you're going to get better. But I also think the experience of casting and spectating, watching better players play, watching casters give tips, and also being able to go back and watch your own match and see what you missed, has really translated to an overall rise in the skill cap across the general player base of this game, which has been fascinating and super cool to watch and be a part of. But yeah, there's so many things that Mongrel is doing right now. And on the flip side, we all know that WatchtheTurd, I think, is a little bit newer to multiplayer. I know that he's been doing practice matches, right? But this is his first tournament match. This is his first match on camera, on screen. So there's lots of possible lessons. I'm excited about the idea that there's lots of possible lessons he'll be able to take from this experience and bring them into round 2, whether he wins or loses. And, you know, I bet you, 5-6 months from now, he'll be beating the crap out of people too. He's still, by the way, in a fine position. Power-wise, check this out. Rome is still stronger than Persia, So we have to worry about that free ballistic coming out. That could be a real issue. And, of course, Rome's vision is not great right now, so it looks like Rome is getting ready to gear up against attacking the Thracians, having virtually no idea that there's a Persian army right there. Rome has no clue. In fact, because this scout has barely moved. Oh, actually, the scout is now back in a better position. The scout was down here. So this was all fogged when this... So now Rome can actually see this. And even with the worker, we can spot this worker. This would be a major, major red flag for me. I would be like, there is an issue on the field. I have an army either on its way, or I don't know if I would assume that there's already an army there. I definitely have sent worker chains out on their own before, but I also tend to send them around along with armies. Look at this movement, by the way. This is the Persian turn. So this is an experience that I can show you from this perspective. We are on the Roman perspective, but still the Persian player is moving around that vision. So now we have an attack on a camp, and we, the Romans, have virtually no idea that it's happening. Okay, now we can see an axe. We can see that. So that's going to be our first signal that there are Persians in the north. The Persians have crossed the plains and the mountain pass and have made it to our side of the map to claim more territory for their empire, and we cannot allow that to happen. We know there's an axe in the region. And by seeing the axe, by the way, and taking attack, that would make me assume that there's at least 4 units in this region, and currently Persia actually had 2, 4, 6, 7, but I would assume there's at least 4 units in this region, if not more. Because you're not going to, at this stage in the game, you're not going to clear a camp with it. I mean, maybe you could do it with 3, but there's a zealot on the throne, so it would also probably assume that the zealot is here. And yeah, you're not just going to send a zealot and an axe onto the other side of the map to clear a camp when you're dealing with the Romans. So I would assume a sizable force is around here. The Romans are going from monasticism. I do understand it, but I really would have liked to cycle to spoked wheel at this point, I think. Let's take a look at Zoro's spread here. Still only 2 orders per turn. We're going to have to work on manually spreading that to our cities to really capitalize on the orders. Yes, sorry, yes. Bull moves, yes, you're right. For anchoring, yes. If you don't know about a boat, the anchoring is still shown. But a real fun stealth trick, speaking of lading in particular, lading is a promotion. I think that's what it's called, right? That increases your anchor range. If you have that on your unit, right? I'm going to show you the promotion line of the spear. But if this is a ship, nice scouting on the part of Rome now. Rome knows something's up and they wanted to take a peek and they did, oh shit, there's an army here. Really nice that. But if there's an anchor promotion on your bireme and you are already anchored, it's a way to stealth increase your anchor, because you can get the promotion on your turn when you're already anchored. You know, you anchor the previous turn, you promote on the next turn, and it actually increases your anchor range that turn. So you can kind of bait people into thinking that you can't anchor as far as you can, and it's a real annoying way to mess with people. Alright, so the Romans are aware they have trouble in the north, which is not where they want to be, because I still don't think they want to be spending their orders fighting battles with Persians right now. And yes, Chloris is still an incredibly useful filter. So, like I said, sometimes I will literally, if you shift-click, the filter will stay on. And there have been moments where vision was so crucial to whatever fight I was in that I literally just leave this filter on, because I'm trying to make sure that I can, keep a chariot. Like if you're trying to fight this fight, for example, get them to come out a little bit onto this plane and keep chariots just out of range, you know that you can maybe put your chariot down here, or even right here. Even if they move a little bit close and spot one, they'll still be, in mostly flat terrain. So very, very useful filter indeed. Happy that you're taking notes. Yeah, there's so many nuanced things. And one thing I like about the process of people being able to kick back, relax, and either listen to this as like a podcast, or however or just have the camera on, or like have it on your phone or whatever, and just learn. It's a real nice, low-key, low-stress way to kind of gain information about the game through osmosis, absorbing everybody else's knowledge, because not all of us, unfortunately, the 4X genre these games are long. It's tricky to spend 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 hours playing one game with one opponent. So you're not really going to be able to learn all that much. Or you learn through practice. I think that's a great way to learn, but We're all limited by time, basically. So it's nice to be able to help people learn in a more laid-back format. Purple Bull Moose is painting his deck as we speak. That is amazing. Yeah, then that's awesome. So I appreciate you guys being here and chilling and hanging out with me. It means a lot. It's really cool. I never thought I would be one of these like streamer people who's, only 10 of you in chat. No big deal. I'm no filthy robot or anything. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. I never really got the whole watching people play game things, but I love Old World so much, and now I get it. Now I completely get it. But back in the day, I never really understood the whole streaming thing, but now I completely get it, so it means a lot to have people hanging out. The Persians have very easily and successfully cleared this site, and their settler is ready on this very turn, and this is something I've talked about. Can they make it? Yep, they made it. They just force march. This is exactly how you want to do it. Really amazing play from MongrelEyes. Smooth. This whole process. The migrating of the army north. The worker chain that we got to see on display. The building of the settler. The clearing of the camp. The timing of that. I said this in a different match. Worst case scenario. When you're clearing a camp, you want the settler being built somewhere. So, like, even if it was all the way back here, cool, it's ready. But the best case scenario, that thing is ready to settle the moment you clear it, especially if you're doing aggressive clearing like this. You do not want to fight a battle over a site that you just cleared and then lose it to your opponent. That is so annoying. Border boost. Turn 65 border boost going for the Persians. Wish I noticed that while he was selecting the tech, because I would love to see how massive this border boost is going to be. This is going to be massive. So we'll take a check back on that next turn, if I can remember. It's going to be super exciting. Yeah, great job here. Also, we're going to get a border boost on this city, which is also fantastic. Should absorb most of this lake, I suspect. Really, really amazing efficiency there. 40 orders per turn now for the Persians. 42, actually. 500 orders invested in this game overall, greater than the Romans. But the actual order rate for the Romans still not too bad. The Persians have 42, but the Romans have 29. So there is, they are able to bridge that gap. They're going to get monasticism soon. And if they can spread that to all of their cities, the Zorro, that will help them with their order econ. Looks like Rome, they're going to try and maybe clear this barbarian camp. They also have room to add more statesman city. They only have one statesman city on the map right now, so they could get another order that way pretty easily. The Romans can see this whole situation unfolding in the north, though, so now they know they have two fronts. Oh, another amazing thing. Love, this is one of the reasons why the stupa is one of my favorite wonders, by the way. Not only does it give you a civic in every city when you build it, not only is it legitimacy in every, it's like 2 legitimacy, right? Yep, 2 legitimacy in every city when you build it. If there is any version of water border expanding nonsense, it's an urban tile. You can use it just like you would use a hamlet, and it only takes 1 turn to build. Right? So in this particular situation, down by this Roman city, MongrelEyes has chosen to place his stupa along this lake, which has then allowed him to build barracks, forward barracks, towards his opponent. So when he starts building units here, he's actually going to be skipping a little ahead. He's probably going to save himself about 1 order every time he builds a unit, because they're going to be pop out a little bit further ahead. So that's really, really fun. Cool mechanic there from Mongrel. Wow, you are playing so good, Mongrel. You should be very, very happy with the way this game is going for you. Love to see it. Looking forward to see you in round 2, win or lose. You're playing very, very well. And he's building a bireme in the this city as well, which is going to be useful. Point symmetry coastal rain basing maps are really cool because they're the little sliver of land of ocean that's characteristic of the coastal variation map is actually on both sides of the map, and then yet the player capitals are on opposing oceans. It makes a really, really interesting interplay of if you can settle the other coast, and if you're able to gain any control in there, it can have a lot of strategic value, and I think it makes it very unique compared to the regular coastal rain basin map. That's one of the reasons why we chose to keep both versions. In the tournament, we have the normal wide coastal rain basin map where you have mountains on one side and coast on the on the other side. And then we have the point symmetry version where it's the coast on both ends. And I really like this version of the map. Really cool. We have free Hestates coming out for Romans. We have 12 orders per turn, and we're about to run out of time. So I feel like maybe WatchtheTurd is struggling with the timer. Oh, this is a tough grab. Tell me in the comments, what would you grab here? We have a free Ballista in 3 turns, or the free Palton Cavalries. He's going for the Paltons. Would you make the same decision? 4-turn Paltons versus 3-turn Ballistas from Science in the tech tree, and whichever one you pick, you're trashing the other one. Crazy, man. Crazy. I think the answer is the Paltons, but it's always horrible to toss the Ballista. And I don't know, maybe the Ballista would be better against Rome. I don't know, that's a really tough grab. That's a really, really tough draw. How unfortunate. And that's one of the things where sometimes the culture can line up just poorly enough that there are 2 of them. There are 2 horses. 2 horses for 250 science versus 1 Ballista for 200 science. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I guess the horses make more sense. It's always sad to see the Ballista go. Speaking of which, and the Hestasis will come out in 6 turns. So Paltons in 4, Hestasis in 6. Rome kept on that front. Military score still advantage Rome, but the problem Rome faces now is that there are 2 fronts. Of course, there's nothing happening down south, really. But about half of Rome's power, actually I would say the majority of Rome's power, is scattered in its core. Some out here on this front, some here trying to deal with this camp, and of course he has a nice sizable force to defend, and he has great woods. The good news for Rome is that he has fantastic woods around Ovalava. Great considerations from the Purple Blue Moose in chat about which bonus card to pick for the Persians. He's saying Persia is about to be on offense or is going on the offense. Therefore, it makes the most sense to grab the Paltons because they have route. And I think Cloris made a good point that there's 2 of them. But he's saying if he were on defense, he would actually go for the Ballista. And I think that's a great consideration because a Ballista inside of a city that's getting besieged is just hell to deal with, and they can do so much damage to incoming infantry, and we do see lots of spears and slingers, and we know that the unique unit of the Persian is ranged, so it doesn't necessarily counter. Oh wait, no, we would be the Persians. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if you're on defense, the Ballista would make more sense. I like that thinking. Good thinking there. Moose. 3 turns on Hastati now. It looks like we got a science boost somewhere. I'm not really the best at checking events, although we have a free warrior that can come out. And we didn't take it. What on earth are we taking with our events here? Turd, your event choices keep confusing me. I didn't really get a good look at the other options, but I feel like in this particular situation, you'd want a free warrior. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the other option was nice. We are ill with our scholar. What is our heir? Our heir is a 34-year-old builder. Romantic builder. That's not too bad. Oh, do we have any generals that can take the throne? Let's take a peek at the dynasty of Rome. Orator, that actually could be handy to make up our order economy if our political situation gets boosted from him being on the throne. And then no one else is really of age yet. It's always shitty to be on the receiving end of a zealot, I feel like. Doing some extra scouting from the Romans. Romans moving their unit around. Probably going to try and get up in these northern woods. Yep, force march. Since I force march already, I would see if I could get to this location. The Roman player should be aware of it. Maybe that forces Persia to chop it, but whatever. I'd see if I could get a real good peek of this army with the remaining orders that I have. Mostly because I'm already force marched. It sucks to have to force march a second time. Not that we would. We could make it next turn, but I don't know. Something to think about, I guess. We're going to spend orders on clearing. What is the Persian vision here? Persia has very little vision of the actual goings on in Rome itself. So that's good news for Rome. They have no idea how fragmented the bulk of their military forces, which is pretty good news. I'll be curious if the Persians decide to do some internal scouting to decide if they should attack. But, of course, now we're dealing with 10 cities to 5. I was talking about how, 6 to 9 isn't necessarily insurmountable, or 7 to 10, or 7 to 9, but 10 to 5 is not ideal. Let's just say that. Especially because the Persians have the order economy to just develop themselves so nicely. We are building an estate. So it looks like we will try to attempt to complete that opulent ambition. That's nice. That's nice. We're still trying to stockpile 2,000 food, by the way. It goes to show how difficult it is to get up there when you're actually spending your resources on stuff. All right, Persia taking a deep dive into the Roman territory, taking a peek at what we are, and finding a nice home in these forests. Nice little cabin in the woods for this scout. And now he's trying to see. Now he has an opportunity to take a peek at what damage he can do. This axe can do some serious damage. The majority of his force is ranged, though. So, in fact, he literally only has 4 military units in this. Oh, no, there's 2 axes. My bad. So there's 5 military units, 1 spear, 2 axes. That's pretty okay. But these forests are definitely going to come in handy for the Romans as they try to mount a defense. I feel like if a battle happens, although if we're only going 2 hours, I think we're going to run out of time. Yeah. So, looking dicey for the Romans. A little bit of a trial by fire for WatchtheTurd. MongrelEyes is a good opponent. He did pretty decent in the last tournament, and I think he's gotten exceptionally better this time around. So, looking forward to watching his journey this year. Really, really excellent Persia game on his part. Yeah, I really, very few notes since I've tuned in this. I watched a little bit of the first session. I didn't watch all of it. But since I've tuned in, very, very few notes that I can think of. I don't know, maybe do we have trap? We're Persia, we have trapping. So, like, maybe things like you're not building enough camp. We just got this border boost, by the way. So this is our border boost. So I can't even criticize that because I think these tiles literally just in the last turn entered our territory. So never mind. Yeah, really solid play from the Persian player here. Nice getting a general on this horse archer. I love horse archers now. I have been converted. Spent years thinking that they're a trash unit, but they're good on so many different levels for so many different reasons, and I'd love to talk about why all the time now that I think they're good. Because I think they're an underrated unit. And one thing, I won't go on the whole rant, but one thing to think about is the upkeep. Alcaris was saying just the other day in a different match how archers are so hard to deal with because they start taxing your wood, right? And, so you don't build archers unless you have lumber mills, and it's like they're complicated to get set up because you need the lumber mills or else you'll go bankrupt or you'll be spending too many orders chopping wood and yada yada yada. Horse archers cost food, dude. So they're basically mobile archers that do more damage because they're strength 6. They're 6 strength. And they're cheaper to maintain. You still have to chop wood to actually build them. They're 50 wood. But they're 50 wood as opposed to 100 wood for an archer. They cost food, and their upkeep is food. So a battalion of horse archers lying around is easier and cheaper to maintain than actual archers. And I don't know. I'm in love with them now. Yep, we're upgrading to axes as well in the backline, getting all of our units upgraded. Plenty of training for the Persians, by the way. 141 training per turn, and we have a stockpile of 1,000. The Romans, on the other hand, have cleared this camp, which is great news for them. Do we have a settler lined up? So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about. What's the point of clearing this camp if we can't settle it? Well, never mind. I'm not going to say that in this situation because actually it's really important. We can clear this camp and then migrate this arm. Oh, we have a settler right here. Never mind. Foot and mouth. Good job, WatchtheTurd. Never mind. Never mind. Ignore me. Sometimes I don't notice everything. But yeah, here we go. We have a settler right here, which, hey, fantastic. Kudos to you. You also are perfectly timing that expansion. Zone of control is getting in his way. You could force march if you want to, but I don't know. Maybe not worth it. Could be, but maybe not. Foot in mouth. 2 turns on a Hastati. He really wants those to show up. At this stage, I would be looking at my governor positions. So, for example, I have a general right now. I am a general. I could get 8 science by making myself governor of the capital despite being ill. I might actually try that. Like, sit back, do the math on this real quick, and see if that 8 science would put me over the edge. Let's see. 50 science on top of what I have, which is 195. That would bring me to 145. Yes, if I govern myself right now in Roma, I would get these Hastasis next turn. And to be totally honest, with what I'm looking at up north, I would absolutely spend 100 civics on that. Even if my character died next turn, I wouldn't care because I'd have 2 Hastasis out and ready to go and ready to start migrating. I bought myself 1 turn with that. So that's something you can think about too. If you get really close to these things and you're just like 10 science away, you can look at your governor positions and think, oh, I need more than 5 science. I need 10 science or 8 science. I have my 8 science right here. Here we go. A really little bit of nice bit of micromanagement you can do. And sometimes that stuff, it's tiny little things that can add up like that, as annoying as it may be. There is a Persian bireme in the south, and a question from chat, does Rome have anything to deal with it? No, not currently. Rome is not even aware of it if we go to the Romans right now. Whoops, I keep hitting the wrong button. Yeah, Rome has no vision. It would probably be in Persia's best interest to get 2 or 3. I like to try and go by 3s. But certainly 2s is better than 1. I never like to do anything with just 1 bireme. Although I say that, and I'm sure you'll watch me do that in one of my games. But just conceptually, that's the other thing. I have a lot of opinions and strategies in this game. Nice to see some northern chopping to deal with this scout from the Persians. Really nice play there. We're seeing more chopping here. Denying vision. Love to see that. Really, really great use of orders. Tactical chopping. Great play from MongrelEyes. I think he's going to do so well this season. Building the Temple of Solomon as well, because why not? Any other wonders secured? No wonders. The pyramids, the Jerwan, the Ishtar, all in the game. Nobody grabbed either yet. The Monumental Buddhist would be a great grab for Persia if they could. This city is going to be strong soon. I think that would really help their opinion game. I think that's going to be a wonder that's probably underrated quite often, but really, really makes it easier, that much easier to manage your opinion game if you get plus 60 opinion with all religions. And then it gives you extra culture for every religion in your empire. So every religion, it's extra 2 culture per religion in all cities, which is amazing too. So every city in the Persian Empire right now would get at least an extra 2 culture. Some would get 4, some might even get 6. More staging in the north from the Persians. I want to look at this order advantage one more time. This is one of the key stats to think about if you're about to wage a war. Thankfully for the Romans, even though Persia has been so ahead for most of this game, 43 to 31 is not necessarily the worst position to be in. And that's really good news for Rome. Do we have... We have serfdom on Rome. It looks like we pivoted off of monasticism. We probably cycled the deck once we hit strong. That totally makes sense. And that is an advantage of the scholar. You can rush straight for that unique unit card. A rebel. Why? Oh, we have religious dissent. Wow, I hope you guys weren't able to hear what that noise just was. I don't know what it was, but... Well, I mean, it was something from the highway, but it was really loud. Yeah, we have Zoroastrian dissent. If you can clear that, or if you were in freedom, that would deal with that. That's another advantage of staying in freedom sometimes. I think slavery is the right call here, but because our economy is not that great. But just something to think about in general while you play the game. Nice way to dodge the buildup of rebels is to keep freedom active. Always annoying to have to deal with a rebel when you have 50 million other things to do. This will likely be a statesman city. We only have one, so I think we're getting envy, actually, right? Oh, no, we're not. Well, cool. Now we have an extra order per turn, which is exactly what Rome needs. Also, we do have trapping, so there's way more orders accessible up in this location as well. There's another order and a half in this region that we can grab. So great news for the Romans. Shoring up those weaknesses. $30 training per turn in the champ seat, so we can do 2-turn warriors and slingers if he wants to maybe think about a mass upgrade of some kind. Nothing like spamming slingers indefinitely until you're ready to just upgrade them all to longbows. Whoop! Sorry if I just made a noise on my mic, and I'm going to make another noise on my mic, putting it back into the correct position. My apologies. Wouldn't be a Scion cast if I didn't make some noise with my mic. Judge in the capital is nice. Ooh, a warlike judge, too. Decent ability. You know, honestly, there's 5 citizens in this city. It might not be a bad idea to put an elder poet here. I might rush this out and then rush an elder poet as well. And that's just from the Odeon. Yeah, oh, wait, no, that is an Odeon. We don't want to be hard building a master poet. Rush this. So, Turd, if you watch this back, nothing necessarily wrong with putting the poet in Roma, but you have a judge on the throne, you should rush it. You shouldn't spend what was likely like 8 turns building a master poet. That's a huge waste. When you could just spend like 2 turns getting yourself an elder and getting the lovely yields of 5.8 civics, 1.5 science, and 2 culture. Because, yeah, this isn't a good use of a build queue. Long term, anyway. The faster you can do anything in this game, in my opinion, the better. I'm probably a little overzealous with that thinking. I'm sure it comes back and haunts me sometimes, but generally that's how I think about the game. Now is better than later. Interesting. So we're not choosing to aggress against the Romans. We're just going to develop more. Do we have another settler coming out yet? It doesn't look like it, but there's really not much Rome can do about this expansion here. So classic Alcaris bit of advice. If you are ahead, just get more ahead. And that seems exactly like what Persia is choosing to do here. No real reason not to. Why attack into a decently fortified position if you can just get more 3 city sites, more city sites, and there's nothing that your opponent can do to stop you. Let's see if we're going for another Byreme down here. We're not, actually. Interesting. I would have assumed we would. Also, we want to swap this to an opulent project now because we only have 10 years to complete it. And it will take 9 years to do it. I don't even think that that's worth it. I might take the legitimacy hit, to be totally honest. But definitely on the table now for us if we want it. Are there any horses down here for unique units? No, there are not. 3 Palatins in 1 turn. What were the Persians? And we're just coming up to the second hour. So I'm pretty sure this session will be ending soon. I'll see if I can take myself a break. I have to check on the... Give me one moment. Oh, alright, so our players in the second session are ready to go. So I will hop in. I'll be joining them momentarily with another live stream. And of course, to all of those you... I know I say this. I hope it's not annoying that I say this, but, you know, try to I try to do, even though we're doing these lives, I also try to keep in the back of my mind the idea that most people, because, like, there's 9 people in chat right now, and I appreciate everyone being here live, but I feel like the majority of people who watch these videos, if anyone does watch these videos, are going to be doing it after the fact on YouTube. So that's one of the reasons why I try to also orient the way I speak around the idea that somebody's watching this like a week from now, or a month from now, or maybe even 6 months from now. So it means the world to me that you're here too, and I hope you've enjoyed the tournament, and I hope everything's going okay in the future. And it'll be great to look back on some of these videos someday and think how far we've come as a community as well, because my hope is that we can give Old World the type of lifespan that a game like Age of Empires 2 has had. Because Age of Empires 2 has been around for 20 years, and people still play it, and there's still a thriving multiplayer community. So now that I'm involved in the multiplayer community, that's kind of like the goal in the back of my mind. Can we get this game to live a long lifespan just by, you know, pouring ourselves into it and growing it? That's kind of my goal. So hopefully, people in the future, if you're watching this, you're watching a video like this, and we're on Season 5, or 6, or 7. That would be great. Let's take a look at that power graph. Because conflict certainly will be ramping up next session, and the Romans are still slightly ahead. Really great news for the Romans. This just goes to show, even though I think Persia would win a fight because of the orders aspect, this just goes to show how much of a chore it is to actually gain a military advantage in terms of raw strength and output over the Romans. It's very easy for the Romans to stay up to par in military strength. I still think the Persians have a definitive edge because a lot of the Roman Empire's might is warriors and slingers, whereas the Persians have axes and archers. But that just means that the Romans have way more stuff. Nice to see some generals getting on the Hastati early. Also would like to see some early promotions. We have strike as an option. 2 strikes on these guys could be pretty solid. Nothing else really jumps out to me at the moment. Maybe bloodthirsty. Yeah, the 2 bloodthirsties as well. Maybe that would be good. Instead, really give them some longevity in a thick fight. I think bloodthirsty and tough especially are underrated. Tough is probably the single most annoying promotion in the game, because, especially in network, because you have to do your combat math fast. And you're never always going to get it perfect. And then you'll hit something that has the tough promotion, and it will completely change the math in real time. And so suddenly you go from knowing that you're going to kill something to realizing you can't kill that thing. It's pure luck. Mr. Streaming. Mr. Streamer, how do I suck less at this amazing game? Do exactly what you're doing. Hang out. Talk about it. I think talking about this game is the best, for me anyway, has been the best way that I've learned. That's one of the reasons why I've been trolling the Discord for years, because asking questions, even debating, right? Even if you say, well, clearly the Hittite Empire is the best empire in the game, well, then you'll get 3 or 4 other people who's going to say, no, it's the Persians. or no, it's Egypt, or no, it's Rome, and then they were going to explain why. And in the process of them arguing about something silly like who's the best nation in the game, you, if you happen to read that discussion, could learn a thing or two. So yeah, in my opinion, just hang out and talk. I think that's the best way to learn. And of course, play. But the more I've talked about this game with people, the more I learn about it. 6 turns on monasticism for the Persians now. That's not great news for Rome, because Persia has... Oh my god, Persia has Judaism in all 10 of their cities already. So they could decide... I really hope we don't see Persia try to do the divination play, or the polytheism play. I think there comes a point in time where, yes, plopping down all your shrines everywhere and getting divine rule is neat and fun and cool, but also it's already turned 70. We have 10 cities with monasticism. I would say just adopt monotheism. Sorry, 10 cities with Judaism. Just adopt monotheism and just reap the benefits, you know? Because realistically, on a 70-turn game, you're looking at the game ending where in anywhere from the next 30 to 50 turns, usually max. Very rarely that I think these duels go over turn 120. And with the advantage we have as Persia, we could probably end it by turn 90, to be totally honest. Could be risky, though. But I think Rome is falling further and further behind with this level of pressure from Persia. Really nice highway here, by the way. What I think I would like to see from the Persians is the adoption of colonies. We have really good economy here. And you want to talk about a highway. If we adopted colonies and collapsed this coast, and then collapsed this coast, then everything from the capital would be able to make it all the way out here in most likely one movement. And that would just become more and more insurmountable for Rome to deal with. So don't forget to collapse your coast. Super useful on pretty much any map with water, really. But also very useful on these coastal rain basin configurations where basically these coastlines create a highway for the players to utilize. Woo! We have a ship poking its head out down south. This I like as a nice taunt, simply because by showing Rome that he has a naval presence down here, he's not even building any more ships, right? But simply by showing his hand, this could actually cause Rome to build ships, which is actually fantastic news for Persia, because every Q building a ship to defend this ocean is a Q not building units to defend this northern front or from a land assault. So I'm actually totally in favor of just kind of poking a boat out and saying, hey, guess what? I have ships. I would even anchor, too, because your opponent can't see what's behind this region. Force them to send their scout out. That's a waste of orders, especially if you're not really doing anything. So like a baiting anchor is a really nice use of a lone ship. I wouldn't keep him so close to the coast, though, because slingers could come pepper him. Bring him down one tile. And yeah, anchor him up and then watch the Romans sweat over absolutely nothing. And I love messing with your opponent that way. It's a lot of fun to just be like, to make them change what they're doing or shake up their gameplay, and try to react to something that you're doing, especially when the thing that you're doing is actually just a bait. It's totally fake. They don't know what's the real thing that's happening. They're too busy looking at your left hand without being able to see that you're about to punch them in the face with your right hand. Very, very, very satisfying. Monasticism in 4. Yeah, so both players are going to get monasticism at roughly the same time. 4 turns for the Romans, 6 for the Persians, and Persia is going to benefit massively. Massively, massively. Really great economy from Persia, especially on the civics and training sides of things. Like, the resource economy is decent. Nothing over 100, but everything's in the green. I feel like he's making use of everything he needs. It's a bit pared down, his economy, but I don't think he's, there's not a lot of waste, right? I actually like having really big stockpiles, but sometimes you can have a stockpile of like 10,000 food and then you lose the game. So it's kind of like, okay, well, all the investment you spent on getting 10,000 food, was that a mistake? Hard to say for sure if the answer was yes, but sometimes it can seem like it if you end the game with massive stockpiles and it didn't matter because you're dead. All right, we are going to be calling it here now. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and close out the stream. I'm going to close out the stream here so I can go catch up with the other game that's starting right now. So if you're looking for more Old World this evening, I'm going to be back in like 5 minutes. I'm just going to step up, stretch my leg, get some more tea, and call it a day. I will do one quick recap before we end here. Population is advantage Persia. Specialists, huge advantage Persia. 27 specialists to 17 for Rome, so that's a real big issue. 11 workers for Persia, 8 for Rome, also a big issue. 28 units for the Romans to Persia 22, but Persia has better units and more orders, so that's going to be an issue long term too. Laws both are at 3. Technology is 14 for Persia, 13 for Rome. Improvements controlled 68 for Persia, 36 for Rome. So in terms of economic output or potential or other potential of urban buildings and specialists, yeah, twice as much potential for the Persians. Order economy obviously favors Persia because it's Persia, but not by much. So there's, 43 to 31 definitely sucks, but it doesn't suck as bad as it could. So Turd does have some, openings and possibilities in that space as well. Science is starting to become wider and wider apart from each other. Now there's a 400 science gap in the tech tree in favor of the Persians, and it seems like somewhere around turn 56 was the breakaway point between these two empires. They were neck and neck this entire time, almost the exact same amount of science output in the tech tree, so very nice position for Rome to be in keeping up with an opponent, but now that advantage is starting to pull away for the Persians, so we're going to be going into a third session, not looking too hot for Rome, especially now that Persia has 10 cities to Rome's 6. Thankfully, they did clear a barb camp and get themselves settled. But yeah, I'll be closing out the stream there. I hope everybody tunes in to part 3, I think, of this game. And yeah, I'm Scientific. This has been the Old World Community Tournament. Thanks for watching.